Morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, my name is Makoto M. I'm going to be presenting on the topic time consumption and productivity of a forwarder operating on a slope in a cattle length harvest system in a pine radiata, Didon pine plantation. So, harvesting is one of the most important operations in the overall chain of forestry, and it has been said that it takes almost about 60 to 80% of the overall costs of delivering timber to the sawmill. In recent years, timber demand has vastly grown around the world, especially timber from sustainably managed forests. Intensive forestry has ensured and landowners have centered their operations or strategically centered their operations more on improving productivity and minimizing costs whilst maintaining quality in a socially, economically, and environmentally sound manner. So one of the harvesting systems that fits very well or properly in such a setting is the cattle length harvesting system. In this system, that is where we combine a harvester and a forwarder. The harvester fells the tree, the limbs, cross-cuts it into different assortments, and then the forwarder comes in for extraction, or it becomes the primary transport from the stand to the roadside, and in some instances to the depot, in some rare instances to the sawmill. According to a study that was done by McEwan in 2013, a harvester can work up to 60% slope, and according to the same study, a forwarder can work up to 45. Then compared it with the Forest Harvesting Handbook of 2010, and they said an 8-wheeled forwarder has it can work up to 40% going downwards. So it then becomes very important for us to check to say what are the things that affect the productivity of forwarder, and then those are your like extraction distance, your piece size, your load size, and particularly or most importantly the slope. And then so it's very important for us now, this is what the paper was trying to do, to check how is the slope affecting the productivity of the forwarder. And then that is where time studies come in handy, because time studies now are able to take a cycle time and dissect it into different elements. Then we can now be able to check the elements and check its interaction with the slope, and then we pinpoint where is it, on which elements or where is the slope really affecting the productivity or performance of this machine. That was my introduction. So the objective of this study was simple: to examine the productivity and time consumption of a forwarder operating on a slope from 21% to 45%. The materials were, like I've said, there was a harvester. We had the 8-wheeled Valmet forwarder. This is an example of that forwarder. If you can look at it, you can see it's really quite big. We would expect it to carry big volumes. It has, the boom is quite okay, and it has got a very big grab. It can be able to really like grab a lot of volume at once. And the 8 wheels plus being, having chains and stuff, it helps it with traction. And also you can see it has got a very good ground clearance also. Then it comes to playing with gravity and everything to improve traction and maneuverability. So the study was done in Australia. What I'm going to be doing during the study, during my presentation, I'll be explaining what was done in the study. I'll be trying to compare with what happens in South Africa and contrast, and I'll try to criticize where I see problems. So the study was done in Australia. The species was a Pinus radiata. I'm sure most people are not really, they don't really know much about radiata, but I'm sure most of us have seen Eleuthai. This species is almost the same with Eleuthai. It has got a very good, it usually has got a very good form. It doesn't really, I haven't seen really big of those species, but it is easy to work with, not so much branches like Patchoula and stuff. The age was 32 years of this stand. And coming to South Africa, we don't really, the rotations are now down to like 20, 22, 25. So this would be a really old compartment for us. The soil was deep red loam, which is good for traction. And then the trial was conducted in 2 days in hot, sunny. So what happened is they were extracting going upwards. The forwarder, the element times were taken using a video recording, which is a good way of doing time studies, taking videos, because you see, let's say if we give you cycles, if your sample size is 20, and you take with a video, you take 25, you take an extra 5. When you now sit down and you're playing their data, if you find any problems, if you have got a video, you are able to see where the problem was, you are able to jump some things and add and side. But however, I have a problem with taking videos for an operation like the one of forwarder, because forwarder has got very long extraction distances. I've been wondering how they were following the forwarder and stuff. Because one problem that you find with recording time studies, with doing time studies with videos, is the person has to concentrate on the element that they on the machine that they are working with. So you find that if I'm taking a video, if the machine is here, I'm taking the video. If you disturb the person, it probably he loses focus. When you're now seated and you are busy taking the elements with the time study up, you find that you are recording, the person moves, and then you lose that cycle or something like that. The number of logs each product type were counted during unloading. The load volumes were estimated by multiplying number of logs per load, which I also find a little bit problematic, because I guess Harvester is able to give you the volumes of trees when it fails. So here they were just estimating, and I'm not so sure what it does at the end result, but I think this is where tagging and stuff comes in, to say you are able to track the volume of each log, each tree, and then to give us more accurate volumes. And then the multi-dartboard computer was used for determining travel distances and speeds. So these are when they were doing the time studies, these are the elements that were followed. The first element was travel empty. This is when the forwarder leaves the landing and it moves into the stand towards where the logs are, until it reaches there. And then loading is the time. Loading is the time when that boom of the forwarder moves from the forwarder to start taking the logs and loading them in. Moving during loading, remember, if it is a harvesting operation, it's a cut to length, we'll be having different assortments. So sometimes it will have to grab here, load, and then move a little bit and load from another. Travel loaded, unloading, like you can see there, moving during unloading. These are the elements that were used. The methodology, there were 23 cycles that were recorded, which I feel like they're a little bit less, but that was their sample size. Out of the 23, 14 cycles were taken on veneer lumber logs. 2 cycles were on chip logs, which is the average sizes. A little bit bigger saw logs, it was 3 cycles, and then there were 4 cycles for mixed, where they mixed all these 3, just to try and get a bigger payload. The forwarder extraction distance was 428 meters. According to the Forest Handbook 2010, extraction for forwarder 8-wood one is 1,000, so average should be like 500 meters. So 428 is within there, it is good. For a forwarder, it shouldn't be too little, because if the distance is too small, it has to do a lot of turns and stuff, and it reduces the productivity. So the extraction distance average, it is okay. The average load volume was 17.3 cubes. The average number of logs per load were 47 logs. So the results were analyzed using these methods that you see here. But what I'll talk about, mainly what was done, the first thing, the usual one, they did an ANOVA so that you can see your mean, your range, your standard deviation. And then the second thing that they did regressions. So the 2 main things that we have is we've got the cycle times and we've got productivity that we want to check. So they took the cycle time, they regress it against the slope. They take the cycle time, they regress it against extraction distance. Likewise, they did the same even for productivity. So we come to a little bit of statistics now. So the average cycle time was 25.4 centiminutes. The standard deviation, as you can see, was 1.2, which is very low, which is good. It tells us that out of the 23, the average cycle times there was not much variation. They were all playing around the mean, which is good. The range was from 18.56 to 38.91. So if our standard deviation was this low, then this lower range, it's okay, but as we go forward, I will show you maybe where we got this 38, that it's still fine, but it's a little bit away from the mean. So here are our elements, as I've told you what was happening with them before. Travel empty had 4.1. It was the average. It is having a very good standard deviation. This one is also having a good one. Just in the interest of time, then I'll just go to the ones that are more interesting. As you can see here, moving during loading, standard deviation is almost equal to the average. Then you ask yourself, why was that? So moving during loading, since we have got different assortments, we've got we've got about 3 different assortments. For the forwarder to have a good payload, sometimes when it is loading, it has to load here and move and then load from another assortment or move to the 3rd one. And then sometimes it doesn't move, sometimes it moves. So there was no clear pattern for its movement during loading. I think that's why we have this case. And we also, as you can see, the standard deviation for moving during loading followed a similar pattern. So here are the regression models for cycle times. Like you have seen in the previous result that I showed you, for travel empty, it's okay, it's more than 50%, 59, it's okay. And then again, like problem that I told you, that sometimes it had to move during loading, sometimes it doesn't move, sometimes it has to move further, sometimes, so we don't have a clear pattern for moving during loading, moving during unloading. That's why we have got a little bit weak formulas for these 3 elements. And then here's the overall cycle formula. And then they did the same with productivity, 71%, and then that is the formula there. The average productivity was 43.6 cubes per productive machine hour, which I think is a little bit steep. That means it's doing about I think 350 or something cubes per shift. And then the last what was analyzed was the speed, the forwarder speed. I'll come back to this one in my conclusion, but I'll just explain it a little bit. So as you can see, when the forwarder was moving in a track, it had higher speeds. But the moment it was moving inside the stand, and then the speeds drastically dropped. I'll come back to this. So the discussion, extraction distance was a major factor, definitely this, and then they said the slope did not have a significant effect on the cycle time. Loading time increased with loading payload. Loading and unloading times increased with decreasing volume. Productivity of the forwarder was almost double, like I said, the volume through was a little bit high, was almost double what has been reported in previous studies. So as I conclude, the conclusion almost says what I've said in the discussion, but I just want to, isn't it, the main thing for this study was to check how the slope is affecting productivity. And then at the end they said slope was not much, it did not have much of an effect on this machine. But when I went back and looked properly into the study and checked the cycles, then I realized one thing. They were trying to check how a forwarder performs in a stand which is from 21 to 45%. But then out of the 23 cycles, most of the cycles that they did were on the lower, like around 20, 25, 28. And they were on the tracks, back to that issue I showed you of the speed. And on the tracks, that's where you have the highest speeds. So at the end of the day, if I can make a very simple example, if you would want to check whether Makoto is good with maths or not, it's a simple example. If you would want to check whether Makoto is good with mathematics or is not good, or is competent with mathematics, you give me a test out of 10, and majority of the questions should be probably a little bit harder, and then maybe 2 should be simple, maybe 2 or 1 should be average. But then if you give me that test out of 10, and out of 10, 8 of the questions are grade 1 mathematics, 1 plus 1, 2 plus 2, and then 2 are university mathematics. Even if I get 0 on the university mathematics, I'll still have the 80%, and then you still report that I'm good with mathematics. That's the same issue here. When we say a slope of, when we study something to say, want to see how it performs from 21 to 45, I think our main objective is on the 45. It's on the higher slope. How is it performing? Because definitely if it performs good on 45, it means it will definitely perform good on 21. But if it performs good on 21, that does not guarantee it will perform good on 45. Thank you very much.